Welcome to episode 8 of your Interview Valet Certified Guest Video Training Series. We've covered everything from picking your kickoff call with us to welcome pages to scheduling your interviews. And today we're switching gears just a little bit. As you can tell, I'm joined today by our founder and podcast guest expert, Tom Schwab. Morning, Tom.
Hey, Dan, I am thrilled to be here.
And I say morning because we're recording in the morning, but whenever you're watching this, just a hello works too. So there you go. So I asked Tom to join me on the training today because our subject is you. See, we want to help you be a great guest on all those interviews. After all, that's your goal, right? So Tom has gone on hundreds, well, maybe thousands of shows. And today we're going to break down a few tips on being a top-notch podcast guest. Tom, what's your first piece of advice for folks?
Oh, man, my first one is, remember, this is a media appearance, right? So just like any other appearance, make sure you show up prepared. You never walk on stage in front of thousands or tens of thousands of people without being prepared. But first thing there is show up on time. Be punctual. It's a media appearance, and that shows how interested you are in the interview.
And I love the idea of if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you're fired, right? so if you can show up, 5-10 minutes early to it might be a Zoom call, a Skype call, whatever. If you can show up a little bit early, quite often that's where the magic happens too. That's when the host may come on, you talk a little bit and connect. It's good, right?
Right. And, part of it is putting the host at ease. If you want a great interview, don't stress them out from the very beginning. And that can even start when you get the actual invitation, right? If somebody invites you to a great event, you want to show you're excited and RSVP to the invitation very early. And then, reach out to them, like you said, 5 minutes before the interview and say, hey, I'm excited to be here. So show that excitement. RSVP as soon as you get that invitation, that booking from your concierge, and then make sure, like you said, you show up on time is late and 5 minutes early is on time.
There you go. So be punctual and then RSVP to the booking. Absolutely. Another point, sound professional. So we have our microphones and obviously as we work with our clients, like yourself, certified guest that's watching, we want you to sound great and have a great microphone. Why is it so important to sound professional?
Because people judge you by how you sound. And especially if it's an audio only podcast, man, if you sound like you're calling in from the bathroom, you are not going to get credibility on this. So make sure that you go through, you test your microphone beforehand. If it's on Skype, you can do that call and echo 1, 2, 3 and check that. Or even when you first start out, ask the podcast host, tap on the microphone and say, hey, can you hear this? I've been on one of my biggest podcasts early on. I forgot to check my microphone. And at the end of it, the host said, hey, what kind of microphone are you using? And I said, a Heil PR40. Well, that's what I was talking into, but I was getting picked up by the internal microphone in the computer. So make sure you have the equipment, you're in a quiet place, and that you check the equipment.
And so what about Wi-Fi versus wired internet?
Yeah, you want the best connection you possibly can. So, if you can get a hardwired connection, definitely go that way. If you have Wi-Fi, make sure you get as close to the router as possible. You can even run like speedtest.net just to see what kind of signal you want there. What you don't want, or the worst thing would be for your internet to cut in and out. And this is even more important if they're showing the video too, because video eats up a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, it does. And then the final part to that whole sounding professional, when we went out and interviewed thousands of people for our State of Podcast Interviews report, one of the things that kept coming back for advice was no noises. Right? No tapping on your keyboard, no squeaky chair. Make sure you've got a nice quiet environment. That can be so distracting, can it?
Oh, it can. And like the microphone that we give is a dynamic microphone, so it doesn't pick up as much background noise. But still, if you start typing on your keyboard, you can hear that. Just because you turn your head to yell to the dog to get out of the room, they can still hear that. So just remember, you're on stage and everything you do is being picked up there.
So another piece of advice, what should we do about sharing things and being promotional?
Yeah, and it's almost like sending a thank you, right? If somebody invites you over to their house, sending a thank you afterwards, acknowledging it. And it's the same way on social. If you're excited to be there, the host is going to be promoting it to their audience. you should promote it to your audience too. So, when after you do the recording, it's nice to send them a little email or a tweet or something on LinkedIn just saying how much you enjoyed the show. But after that, when it goes live, definitely promote that because, it's the synergy. They're promoting it to your audience, or I'm sorry, they're promoting it to their audience. You promote it to your audience, and it really makes a much bigger impact there. The other thing is that, we're vain. Everybody listens for their name. So if you start promoting the episode and tagging the host in it, they're going to remember you as a guest. They're going to promote it more. They're going to talk about you on future interviews. So it behooves you to promote it to your audience also.
And sometimes it might even turn into an invitation back to the show if it was a great episode and you promote it. So you never know what might happen out there, right?
Exactly. I mean, exposure brings opportunity, and shame on us as guests if we don't add to that exposure also.
Yeah. So be punctual, RSVP to your booking, sound professional, share on social. I got at least one more here. Leave a review. What does that do?
Yes.
Why is leaving a review being a great guest?
Ratings and reviews is how the iTunes algorithm ranks podcasts, how more people find it. And it's almost like Amazon, right? The more reviews a product gets, a book gets, the higher it gets ranked in there. So if you've been on a podcast, sometimes before you go on the podcast, if you listen to the show, leave a review. But definitely after you've been on a podcast, you can even go to the brief sheet that we provide you, scroll to the very bottom, and there's the link to the iTunes URL there. Click that and then just click leave a rating and review. And you can be really, transparent there and say, I was a guest on this podcast. I really enjoyed it. People will notice that, and especially the hosts. Any host out there looks at who's left them ratings and reviews because they're notified of this. And if you take that time to just acknowledge with one or two sentences why this show made a difference to you, that will get noticed. And I tell you what, that will open up more doors. You'll get known as a great guest. And really, it's just giving back. When you're finished with the interview, the majority of your work is done, right? But you've got to understand that podcast host is now going to take that, edit it, master it. They're going to promote it on iTunes. They're doing a lot of work afterwards to make sure the world gets to hear your interview. So take 2 or 3 minutes and leave them a rating and review.
Any last words of advice from our sage founder here, Tom?
The only thing that I could say is I was just recently in a meeting and a bunch of podcasters, about 40 podcasters were there. And one of the common themes that I heard was about being real, being transparent. In the kickoff call, the onboarding call, we talk about the message, the market, the machine. The message is, everybody likes stories. Nobody likes an infomercial. And I think people want to know who you are. The host does, the audience is. So don't just stick to your bullet points, your talking points. Be transparent, be honest. The world craves human connection right now. So be vulnerable in the questions and just connect with the people. I heard somebody say, dance like nobody's watching and talk like no one's listening. So just have that authentic conversation with somebody, just like you were sitting down with them at a Denny's restaurant. Don't always think that there's thousands of people listening. Also, people want to know who you are. Be transparent. Be authentic.
Great advice on being a great guest there, Sam. Appreciate that very much. So certified guest, that's you. That's your training. We are so excited to get you on shows and get your message out there to the whole market. So any questions, email us here and let us know what's going on. And we're looking forward to this. Thanks, everybody.